following was recorded at the St. Paul's Baptist Church in Richmond, Virginia.
I am the Reverend Dr. Courtney Bryant Prince, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural gathering of the Center for Womanist Leadership. Woo! As we gather together, I'm reminded of the words of womanist practical theologian Lynn Westfield, who writes, and I'm paraphrasing, that gathering is an act of resilience. It is an act of freedom and a practice of hope. And so as we have pressed our way on this beautiful Thursday evening, I hope that you see in each face that you encounter hope, resilience, and the persistence of freedom. I'm very excited to welcome to the, oh yes, persistence of freedom, absolutely. I have the pleasure of welcoming a number of people to the podium this afternoon or evening, but first and foremost, I would like to introduce President Brian Blount, who is the president of the Union Presbyterian Seminary here in Richmond, Virginia, as well as the Reverend Dr. Corey Walker,
Reverend Dr.
president
Dean
of STVU, that is the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University.
Woo-hoo!
Both gentlemen have been incredibly gracious in allowing those who work at their respective schools to give their time and energy and woman hours to make what you see this evening possible and what you're going to see over the next couple of days possible. So if you would give a warm welcome to Dr. Blount, and then after that, Dr. Corey Walker. They have a few words and acknowledgments that they'd like to share.
In a world where women continue to be denied equity in matters of finance, employment, religion, politics, sexuality, and safety, there is no better time for the disruptive scholarly and communal efforts that have been on display in the activities of Squaring the Womanist Circle, and with this inaugural gathering will be on boundary-breaking, transformational display in the teaching, research, and social justice ministry of the Center for Womanist Leadership. Professor Katie Geneva Cannon is a pioneer in the scholarship of theological and womanist ethics. She is a gift to the faculty and indeed the entire ministry of Union Presbyterian Seminary. As president of the seminary, yes. As president of the seminary, it is an honor to be her colleague and to provide institutional support to this mighty endeavor that she has unleashed in our school, our nation, and our world. This inaugural event sweeps the center forward in its work, and there can be no better person to initiate this work than the gifted Dr. Alice Walker, whose passion, art, and scholarship coined the term womanism and thereby birthed a movement. On her website, Dr. Walker shares the words, "We are the ones we have been waiting for." Through its work, the Center for Womanist Leadership aims to step into that gap of waiting and provide the ministry of responding by educating, by using that education to resist and to transform. Along with all the Union Presbyterian Seminary community and the broader Richmond community, I am grateful to God that Dr. Walker is here at this moment to help inaugurate the transformational leadership of our Womanist Center. Tonight, we are all witnesses to the center's birth. Tomorrow, we become ambassadors for its mission and its work. Thank you.
Aww.
Good evening. It is indeed an honor and pleasure to share with you these brief words and in many ways to sit down and to continue to learn from so many esteemed scholars, so many esteemed members of our community, but most importantly, so many folks who care about the future of our world and the future of humanity. In her 1892 classic collection of essays, A Voice from the South, Anna Julia Cooper identifies the limitations of the existing regimes of thought with an acute clarity. She writes, "Sick at heart, I turn away and ask myself, what is this system which, in the words of Richter, makes the universe an automaton and our future a coffin? Is this the cold region to which thought, as it moves in its orbit, has brought us in the 19th century? Is this the germ of the philosophy of the future, the exponent of our advanced ideas, the new light of which our age so uproariously boasts?" Cooper correctly recognizes and goes on to analyze the limitations of a modality of cognition of the world and human experience that is epistemically partial, ethically limited, and experientially incomplete. What is needed is nothing less than a fundamental and foundational transformation of the values, concepts, and frameworks which have rendered an inhumane existence humane and a singular experience as the norm. Thus, Cooper's statement delivered before a convocation of black clergy not only critically addresses such a condition, but also offers a corrective. When she states, "Only the black woman can say when and where I enter, in the quiet, undisputed dignity of my womanhood, without violence and without suing or special patronage, then and there the whole race enters with me." This inaugural gathering of the Center for Womanist Leadership lives into the broad stream of liberative thinking, courageous speaking, and committed action by black women like Anna Julia Cooper, who work to establish new forms of human being and belonging in the world. Indeed, this gathering gives us another opportunity to fully live into a vision of human existence and community that is too often erased by the dominant dictates of existing regimes of thought and human practice. The Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology of Virginia Union University is honored to offer our support of this gathering and share in the spirit that has brought us to this moment. We are so very thankful to all who have created this unique space of hope and healing, imbued with a generous and gracious spirit of hospitality. It is in this spirit that we affirm the necessity and indeed the imperative for living into a new thinking and being in the world, the essence of which is elegantly captured by Anna Julia Cooper. "Yes," she writes, "I believe there is existence beyond our present experience, that existence is conscious and culturable, and that there is a noble work here and now in helping us to live into it. Not in utopia or some secreted island heaven knows where, but in this very world, which is the world of all of us. Let us live into the world of all of us, and let us thank the Center for Womanist Leadership for inviting us along for this journey. God bless you."
The next person I'll be bringing up to the podium is a truly dynamic woman. Some of you may know her as the Associate Professor of Historical and Theological Studies and the Director of the Doctor of Ministry program at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University. However, in the short time that I have had the opportunity to know her, I would describe her as brilliant, wise, scholar, minister, activist, sister girl, mentor, and all-around dynamo. She's here to share with us the Center for Womanist Leadership's vision, and she is one of the principal visionaries of the center. If you would clap your hands for the Reverend Dr. Alison Gise-Johnson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It is so wonderful to look out and see all of you. You know that when you're planning an event, you really hope people show up. And so we are grateful that you showed up. In terms of the vision, in 1983, Alice Walker coined the term womanist, wherein she captured the freedom that flows in the souls of women and girls of African descent. And when not damned, this freedom flows to dry places and has the audacity to heal nations.
Ashe.
And so as we envisioned the Center for Womanist Leadership, we wanted to create a space where women of African descent could do, as Alice Walker termed or mentioned, to do the work that our souls must have. The work of reading and writing and loving and engineering and strategizing and healing and remembering how to love one another so that we could be the powerful force that flows to dry nations and to dry people. And so just in terms of that, practically what we did was we imagined a space where we could invite women from all spaces, community, academia, the church, so that we could come together, collaborate, and to do work that really, really matters. We don't really see this as necessarily a special moment, but this moment we believe is grounded in a movement that started way before any of us were born. And so to have the opportunity and the resources to convene women of African descent together to do the work that our souls must have, we feel it our responsibility and our amen and ashe to the women that have come before us.
Yes.
So that's the general vision. Again, thank you again for being with us. And the nature of the center is that we're convening so that we can dream and build together. Amen.
So how many of you guys know that when there's any kind of gathering, you need an edifice, a space, somewhere to call your own? And so the person that I'm about to bring to the podium next made that possible. For there are about close to maybe 1,500, 2,000 people in this building right now, and we would not have a home for this event if it were not for the under-shepherd of this house, the Reverend Dr. Lance Watson.
And good evening, all of you.
Good evening.
All glory, honor, and praise to God, our Father and our Mother, our sister and our brother, in whom we live, move, and have our being. To Dr. Prince, President Blount, Dean Walker, Doctors Alison Gise-Johnson, Melva Sampson, Katie Cannon, to our iconic guest speaker, and all of the amazing program participants who will lead us tonight. I stand on behalf of First Lady, the staff, the entire official family of the St. Paul's Baptist Church to welcome each of you to our Creighton campus for this inaugural gathering of the Center for Womanist Leadership. We are a church for people on the grow, touching the world with love by finding needs and meeting them, finding problems and solving them, finding hurts and healing them. And we are excited tonight to partner with these dynamic institutions in launching this unique and critically needed center. I am personally proud to have been shaped in part by both of the institutions represented here, albeit some 30-plus years ago. My moments at both Virginia Union and Union Seminary Presbyterian School of Christian Education have been integral to the work that God has empowered us to do. And so tonight we gather to celebrate Womanist theology and its unique contribution to both the academic circles and the lives of men and women in the quest to create a more inclusive community where all of God's creation is honored, cherished, valued, and celebrated. We are blessed to be here tonight. So please share with me in a greeting that is uniquely St. Paul's, designed each for every single one of us. And this is what you have to do. Right where you are, I want you to turn to your neighbor on the left and right. And I want you to smile. Show them you're 32, you're 22, you're 12, you're 2, whatever you're still working with. And with this great big smile on your face, I want to ask you to stand to your feet, shake hands with everybody around you, smile at them, say, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. That was beautiful. This is so gorgeous.
Hey, how you doing? Good. So glad you're here. Oh, Joy made it. Yay. No, one of our students from Wake Forest.
Touching and agreeing and affirming one another's being through that touch is one of the most historic rituals that we as African Americans have here in the United States during times when the world and this country attempted to tell us that we were not human or subhuman. We only had the rituals, the touch, one another to remind us of our humanity. And so it's only fitting that Reverend Watson would begin us in ritual, but now we're going to go deeper in that ritual. The next person that I will call to the stage is a woman that I've been able to watch over the course of the past few years as I matriculated through my PhD program. I would see her at the American Academy of Religion or the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, and I was always impressed by the way that she moved and the ways in which, even without words, she demonstrated that she was indeed a lover of the Spirit. She's an advocate for her sisters. And if you've ever met her and spoken to her, it seems as though she's never met a stranger. Reverend Dr. Melva L. Sampson is an assistant professor of preaching and practical theology at Wake Forest School of Divinity in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Many of you may know her from her preaching or from her deeply spiritual work. In fact, she's the sister girl you call when you have a question and the prayer just won't get through. She's the person that you call when something's been ailing you in your spirit and you need to press a little bit further. I'm a witness. Some of you might know her from her soul-stirring rituals, and some of you might even know her from her mind-liberating pink robe chronicles. Yes, every Sunday morning. And so without further ado, I invite the Reverend Dr. Melva Sampson to the altar and to the stage to engage us in ritual more deeply.
Hi. Okay. Do I need this? All right then. I just forgot I was in church. Don't walk up on me. Greetings, Pastor Watson. This was my church when I was a student at Virginia Union University, when St. Paul's was on 26th and Marshall Street. When we worshiped in the middle school, I was on the praise team. This is where I first acknowledged the possibility of a call to ministry. So thank you. Yes. Womanist. Womanist is to feminists as purple is to lavender. Holla if you hear me. Womanist,
What did she say? Holler if you hear.
is to feminists as purple is to lavender. Do you feel me? Womanist. I don't feel like you got it yet. I need you to act like you're at the cookout. Womanist is to feminist as purple is to... It is not polite to enter someone's home and not speak. It is not polite to walk on someone's plush new carpet and not take your shoes off. It is not polite to sit on someone's couch and to put your feet up on their ottoman without asking. And so it is with our gathering here today. We dare not come to this most auspicious occasion. We dare not come, some of us who have flown here, some of us who caught the train, some of us who drove here, some of us who walked here. We dare not come and first acknowledge the great creator that has been known by many names in many tongues that some of us have forgotten. So first and foremost, we acknowledge the God that we serve that is known in native tongues as Olodumare, the ultimate supreme being. And together we say Ashe. We acknowledge this great God that is Chukwu, the great spirit, and together we say Ashe. Some call this God Nzambi Mpungu. Nothing is greater than, and together we say Ashe. And we not only acknowledge the Creator, we acknowledge the sacred and empowered mothers. Some in the Yoruba tongue call them the Iyami, those that govern. Some of them call them by names of the characteristics that they represent in the deities, and so some know them as Oshun, and some know them as Oya, and some know them as Yemoja. We dare not come into the house and not speak. And so it is that we find ourselves here in Richmond, Virginia. It is no secret that this was the seat of Confederacy. And how would it be that a sea of black women, that a sea of even white women, amen, that a sea of women of color, and even brothers, that a sea of siblings, that a sea of community folk would come here on the soil of Richmond? And so we speak to the dirt, the red dirt that represents the Mother Earth, and we pour this dirt. We acknowledge this dirt that our ancestors would have run upon, this dirt that our ancestors would have escaped on, this dirt that our ancestors would have cried on, this dirt that some would have chased our ancestors on, this very dirt that Mary Lumpkin, the enslaved Mary Lumpkin, I gotta hurry on because I only got 5 minutes and I used 3. This enslaved woman, for whom her master took and married her, and they together bore children. And when he died, his land somehow went to her, even though she was property that had been freed. There was one Baptist minister from Boston who came to Virginia, the Reverend Nathaniel Culver, who came to Richmond on a mission to find a site for a school to train black ministers. And he initially was found with frustration until he met Mary Lumpkin. Say her name, Mary Lumpkin. And Mary Lumpkin said, "Look no more. You can house your site right here." And that institution later becomes Virginia Union University. Ashe. We have to acknowledge that this too is the very ground that Mary Bowser, born in 1846, baptized here in Richmond, Virginia at the St. James Church, who was born into property but was freed. And in her freedom, she went to Liberia and served as a missionary for 4 years. And upon coming back to Richmond, she became a spy for the Union. And to make sure that the Union would win, she worked in the house of the Jefferson Davis. And in order to be a spy, she had to work and look like she couldn't read. And look like, have you ever had to hold your head down? The dirt. So here we are, about to pour this libation, which is a pouring out, an acknowledgement, a calling to. We are calling this conference to order. We are brought together under the unity, under the banner that is purple. But before you can get to the color purple, you have to stop by the way of blue. Blue, blue, as the water is poured in. We pour in the color blue that represents guardianship, that represents nurturing, that represents all manner of things. And you cannot just have blue. You must have red, for blue represents healing and red represents warrior. And so we call forth the warring energies, for there are some things in this nation and in this world that we must war for. There is no more time for us to just sit and talk about it. It is time for us to pray and to march with our feet. So we call forth the high energy of red. But together, just as we started, that womanist is to purple, as feminist is to lavender, we do acknowledge that for this moment, this is the purpling of this moment. It is the moment when the red meets the dirt, when the blue meets the dirt, and and together we will purple this moment. So at this time, I invite you to aid me as we pour this libation in the name of Black feminists or feminists of color, Ashe. As we pour this libation for those who acted, those who act, and those who will act womanish, Ashe. As we bear witness to those who are so grown, so outrageous, audacious, courageous, for those who will have willful behavior. If you agree, say Ashe. We pour this libation to bear witness to those who love other women sexually and or non-sexually. I said it, for those who prefer women's culture, for those who value tears as a natural counterbalance to laughter. If you agree, say Ashe. We pour this and we stir this dirt for those who were and are and will always be committed to what? To the survival of a what? Of a what? Of an entire people. We pour this libation. We pour it for Alicia, and we pour it for Opal, and we pour it for Brittany, and we pour it for Ebony, and we pour it for Tracy, and we pour it for Carla, and we pour it for Ella, and we pour it for Fanny, and we pour it for Claudette, and we pour it for E.T. Hari, and we pour it for Harry, and we pour it for Nanny of the Maroons, and we pour it for Het Shepson, and we pour it for Nzinga. We pour this libation for those who declare, and will declare, Mama, I'm walking to Canada, and I'm taking you and a bunch of other slaves with me. And for those mamas who aptly responded, it wouldn't be the first time. We pour this libation. We pour to bear witness to those who love music. Say their names. Say the names of those women who love music. Say their names. Ashe. We pour for those who love dance. Say their names. For those who love the moon, say their names. For those who love the spirit in all of its variations and manifestations, say their names. For those who love love, say their names. And for those who love food and roundness, love struggle, love the folk, love herself regardless, say their names. Say their names. Say their names. It is in the name of the great one, Yemen, Yah, the one, the colorer of blue, that invited us to offer this dear piece of Ashoke cloth. And for those of you that know what Ashoke is, it is a special fabric that comes from Nigeria, and this piece is woven for the women. It is not sewn, but it is stitched by hand. There are some imperfections on this piece. There are small pieces of dirt, and my good dear ritualist sister Kanisha had to help to remind me that imperfection is actually the ashe. So with this ashe that is here lying on this here Ashoke cloth, we honor and give as we open this space, as we call this gathering to order. We give this to our dear mother, Elder Alice Walker.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, my darling. Wonderful. What a great gift. Thank you.
And if you agree, say Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
Told you. There is just something about the way a black woman takes up space in a place. Got me with my chest all poked out like I'm down with her. Thank you so much, Sister Melva. Thank you so, so much. I am incredibly excited to bring the next person to the podium. I talk a lot about my time at AAR and matriculating through my PhD program. It's new, y'all, for me, it's new. But the person that I'm about to bring to the podium, I stalked at AAR, that's the American Academy of Religion Conference. I stalked her at the 2016 conference. You know how when they have the let out, when somebody super important gives a presentation or speaks on a panel, and then you have to stand online and wait for them if you want to actually have a real conversation, and sometimes the line can be 15 and 20 people deep. And so I sat and I waited. I sat up against a wall for a good minute, and finally I got to the Reverend Dr. Katie Cannon. And when I finally got to talk to her, her first question to me was, "What do you want from me?" And I said to her, you know, "I just want to know you. I just want to know you." And something about that answer, I think, must have moved, or I thought must have moved her, because then all of a sudden she starts giving me gifts. She's giving me pins, Starbucks gift cards, you name it. I mean, anything in her pocket. She's like, "Oh, yes, and have this, and have this, and have this." And I walked away thinking that I was super special because I had moved this beautiful woman to give me these gifts. But the longer that I spent time with her, particularly over the course of the past year, I've realized that that's just how Dr. Cannon is. The Reverend Dr. Katie Cannon is professor of Womanist ethics and theological ethics at the Union Presbyterian Seminary. She is also one of the primary architects of Womanist ethics. Many of you have heard of Daenerys on Game of Thrones as the mother of dragons. I call Dr. Katie Cannon the mother of scholars because she has continually birthed in so many black women in Richmond and beyond their books, their ideas, the things that they have been pregnant with for so many years but didn't have a place to figure out what exactly was going on in their minds and in their hearts. And she is constantly assisting black women and the community, moreover, on how to tap into and identify the the work that their souls must have. And just to be clear, if you can just raise your hand if Dr. Katie Cannon has in any way contributed to your scholarship, your ministry, your understanding of yourself, raise your hand. Dr. Katie Cannon is a powerhouse. She is also one of the principal visionaries of the Center for Womanist Leadership. And if you know her like I know her, no matter who you are, she always feels like kin. Like somebody that you met and that a cousin you forgot or an auntie you never met, but your life is so much richer and better for having known her. And so, here to introduce our keynote speaker for the evening, the incomparable, the brilliant, ever the introvert, Katie Cannon.
Beautiful people. Good evening, beautiful people.
Good evening.
Dr. Alice M. Walker is a poet, an essayist, an author of novels and short stories, and a progressive activist in the work of justice. Dr. Alice Walker's lifetime contributions to letters and her contributions to African American culture lives deep in the marrows of our bones. The example I'd like to share with you is that several years ago, I was in Sumter, South Carolina, doing a women's retreat one weekend, and the woman in charge in terms of how to form community, she said, "We're going to do something we've never done before." So As a child of the 50s, I knew we were going to say Bible verses. We're going to introduce ourselves by saying Bible verses, and as a child of the 50s, you only get to say Jesus wept one time. Then you got to come up with new verses every week. But at this occasion, 60-plus black women formed community by introducing themselves by quoting from The Color Purple. Yeah. Not one quotation was repeated. The only one I knew is, why'd you tell Hoppo to beat me? That's the only one I knew. But everybody else, they didn't even use that one. They had memorized The Color Purple. And then my friend Dolores, who's here, and others I've talked to, they said they've watched The Color Purple every time it comes on TV. Maybe 20 times. Well, all I did was buy a little black baby doll called Olivia, Old Eyes. So in using this as a litmus test, some of you, I'm sure, have memorized lines from The Color Purple. But what I want to share with you tonight as I introduce our speaker is that one of the things I learned early on in seminary, and that is the greatest sin is confusing the gift with the giver. We say, I have students who say, I love The Color Purple. I love this. I love everything she's written. I said, but who wrote it? Who gave you that gift? So the giver of the gift tonight is here, Dr. Alice M. Walker. The giver of the gift.
Thank you. I am incredibly happy to be here and really, really happy to see you and to feel that we have suffered a lot. And you know what? It has made our joy very sweet. I don't know if you can see that as clearly as I do, because I haven't been here in a long time. But I see it, and I see it as something that poor America, impoverished America, could have had all these years, all these centuries, this joy that we bring. We bring it, we have it. It's a gift. We're not stingy people. Never have been. And look at our country. Can you believe it? I mean, really. It's heartbreaking. And we tried. Didn't we try? How hard we tried. Yeah, we tried. We brought it. We brought it. We brought it. We said, look, here it is. Take it. Talk about not seeing a gift, not recognizing a gift, and then suffering forever. I mean, we're in for some suffering, y'all. You know, it's barely started. What do we need? We need to put this somewhere else. Okay. Is that better? Okay. Now, I love everybody who's been up here, and I'm so terrible with names, so I can't name anybody. I just love everybody who's up here, and I was listening to the music, and one of my new friends said, "God, that girl's music's gonna make us pregnant." And I said, "Really? That's okay." Yeah. So, the wonderful thing about, living here, actually, I mean, I'm convinced that this planet is for something fundamentally very good for us, and suffering is just a part of it. And I mean, you can see it. You can start to really, as you mature, you'll be happy to know that you start to see these things. And I figure out that the reason they start killing us off when we get to be 70 and 80 is because they know we get a clue. And they say, uh-oh, another one is waking up. Let's do them in. But really, you start to see that you actually get something for all of this misery that is imposed on you for no reason. I mean, this whole color of the skin thing. I mean, can you really believe that anybody is going to treat you? And we must stop saying that somebody did something because of the color of my skin. It's not the color of your skin. I mean, just get a grip there. It's not, no. The fact is that on this planet, your skin works beautifully with the sun. So you're home, So you should just rest there, I just wrote a poem, which I don't think I have now on my blog, but it's about how I live in Mexico in the winter. And I get really dark, and I feel so close to my father, who is very dark. And this poem just bubbled up as this appreciation of our connection, that somehow this thing that they've tried to make us feel so bad about is such a beautiful, interactive activity. And I don't know how it would feel not to have it. I mean, suppose you didn't have that connection with the sun. Suppose that actually you couldn't deal with the sun. How would that feel? So there are all these wonderful ways of looking at how we have been oppressed. And we've internalized so much of it. And it's just silly, really. I went to see Maggie Lena Walker's house today. Big, beautiful house she had. Wonderful place. I'm so happy that she had it. We should all have really nice houses. My daughter, actually, I was telling her about a new friend I have in Oakland Hills. I said, she has this big house and she has a red Tesla. Now, I am really the least climbing person you can imagine, probably. I mean, I want a nice house, but I don't want, the whole 9 yards. But she said to me, well, Mama, I think women should have big houses in the hills and red Teslas. So there's that to be thought of, that if you work hard all your life and your dream is to have whatever, that it has been paid for in your name. It has been. I just discovered that my assistant is Japanese American. And she's been giving me all these wonderful books about the experience that she and her family had when they put them in the camps. When the Second World War, they took the Japanese and put them in internment camps, like concentration camps. And she was so, concerned that I understand what that might have meant to her as a child. And I kind of got what my daughter was saying, that people should have what they need. They should have the things that they worked for. All of their things were taken away from them. This is a part of the history of the country that black people also, and all people, should have in your history knowledge. That you're not alone. That racism is something that has covered everyone, you know? So anyway, so I was really happy to see this beautiful home and to realize that this is Maggie Lena Walker is such a womanist. She's an incredible womanist, and part of it is that she had what she needed. You know, she founded her bank, and she did well. She, you know, lunched with presidents. You know, I would have been worried that they'd poison me. But in any case, she was someone who, at the same time, deeply cared about her community and deeply cared about the children. How many of you have seen the film or visited her house? It's a very moving experience, and I'm so happy that you have it here to be reminded that actually we do know how to live in community. We know how to do that. And I have a feeling that unless we do more of it, we're lost. We're lost because the general society is lost. I mean, you really need to wake up, I mean, all of us do, to the reality that the, you know, so-called fabric of society is just frayed, it seems, beyond repair. And if we want to hold on to something that is truly of substance, which is, for instance, community, caring about each other, raising children who are not racists, you know, raising children who are not, you know, always wanting to have more than they deserve. I mean, we have to put, you know, the kind of effort into that Maggie Walker and people like my parents did. My parents, for instance, built a school for us. And the first one, the whites burned to the ground, and they built another one. And that is how we got an education in my little town. I mean, really, they didn't really want us in the town, so we were actually outside the town. But that is how we were educated, because the community came together. And that is a central part of womanism. I mean, that is why we go nowhere without our people. You know, we may fight with them every step of the way, and I have fought with them every step of the way, or rather they have tried to make me quiet. But though soft-spoken, it's impossible apparently to make me quiet. Anyway, so this, you know, is just to say that this particular womanist right here down the street, well, maybe some distance away, is a great reminder of what it is that we are about. You know, that we love our people, we love our community, that we are willing to struggle with our brothers, we're willing to struggle with our uncles and our fathers. I mean, I still struggle with my father, and he's been dead 20 years or more. But this is just the reality. I mean, I see him every time I look in the mirror. What am I going to do? You know, he hasn't gone anywhere. So the separatist part, you know, that is appealing to some people, and there are periods when you do need separation. I know I've had those periods. But the essence of community is sacred. And you can see that sacredness in a gathering like today, when it is just high, you know. I mean, you know, like she said, this young woman's music could make us pregnant. I mean, we are pregnant with just love and gratitude, you know. I mean, you know, that song, How I Got Over, you know, your soul does look back in wonder, in absolute wonder. How did we do that? They were telling me about the slave pens that used to be here, where they bred people like you breed animals, you know, on the slave trail. Although I have to say, I went to the river. A new friend took me to the river, and it's so beautiful. I love rivers. You who live here, protect that river. Don't let them kill that river, whatever you do. I mean, they're killing the water. I mean, can you imagine human beings or whoever they are who would kill water? I mean, really. So anyway, I wanted to bring you something today, which, and I don't know if I have time to read all this, but I just, how many of you know about Barracoon? Anybody know about Barracoon? Oh, good. Well, you remember Their Eyes Were Watching God? Okay. Guess what? Zora has a new book, and it's called Barracoon. And you'll be reading about this very soon. It's the story of the last black cargo. And they sent it to me because, you know, I don't know why they sent it to me. But they did. And they wanted a blurb, you know, a little squiggle of something. And I sat down and I started writing. And then I just got carried away. So I wanted to read this to you. Now, it's a little, it's not too long, but it's worth it because I think what she's done is something magical again in terms of the womanist way of needing to hold all the parts. You know, some of what happens to us because of our suffering is that we do not want other people to basically have anything to say about us. And we don't want our, quote, bad parts to show. But I feel that this is very, very not good for us in terms of our own growth, especially the growth of the heart. The heart is actually so much stronger than we think, just as love itself is more elastic than we think. And so there are actually places you can get to where you hold things that seem impossible to hold and to move forward. You may hold them, but then you get cancer or something or whatever, and you just can't go forward anymore. So anyhow, this is called Those Who Love Us Never Leave Us Alone with Our Grief. Reading Barracoon, the story of the last black cargo. Now, if you, and most of you have read Zora, so you know that she was an anthropologist, and she worked around the turn of the century, a little later than the turn of the century. And what this is about is that she interviewed one of the last Africans who came to this country as a slave. She actually got to do that. I mean, it's an incredible thing that we have here. I mean, it cannot be overemphasized that this is, like Their Eyes, one of those gifts that we will grow from. We will use this to really invigorate our spirits and our souls and make us really wider in terms of what we can hold. Okay. Those who love us never leave us alone with our grief. At the moment they show us our wound, they reveal they have the medicine. Barracoon, the story of the last black cargo, because that's what we were called. We were called black cargo. Not Alice and Katie and, Susie. Black cargo. Black cargo is a perfect example of this. I'm not sure there was ever a harder read than this, so be prepared when you get your copy. For those of us duty-bound to carry the ancestors to work for them, as we engage in daily life in different parts of the world where they were brought in chains, and where they, as slaves to cruel or curious or indifferent white persons, with few exceptions, existed in precarious suspension, disconnected from their real life. Can you imagine what it must have felt like to be just totally disconnected from everything you ever knew? And where we also have had to engage a struggle to protect our own humanity, to experience joy of life in spite of everything evil we have witnessed or to which we have been subjected. And that list is really long. Reading Barracoon, one understands immediately the problem many black people years ago, especially black intellectuals and political leaders, had with it. It resolutely records the atrocities African peoples inflicted on each other long before shackled Africans, traumatized, ill, disoriented, starved, arrived on ships as, quote, black cargo in the hellish West. Who could face this vision of the violently cruel behavior of the brethren and the sistren who first captured our ancestors? Who would want to know via a blow-by-blow account how African chiefs deliberately set out to capture Africans from neighboring tribes, to provoke wars of conquest in order to capture for the slave trade people, men, women, children, who belonged to Africa? And to do this in so hideous a fashion that reading about it 200 years later brings waves of horror and distress. This book is, make no mistake whatsoever, a harrowing read, because we are being shown the wound. However, Zora Neale Hurston's genius has once again produced a masterpiece. What is a masterpiece? It is the feminine perspective or part of the structure, whether in stone or fancy, without which the entire edifice is a lie. Right? And we have suffered so much from this one that Africans were only victims of the slave trade, not participants. Poor Zora. An anthropologist, no less, a daughter of Eatonville, Florida, where truth, what was real, what actually happened to somebody, mattered. And so she sits with Cudjoe Lewis, this was his name, Cudjoe Lewis. She shares peaches and watermelon. Imagine how many generations of black people would never admit to eating watermelon. Remember that? She gets the grisly story from one of the last people able to tell it, how black people came to America, how we were treated by black and white, how black Americans enslaved themselves, ridiculed the Africans, making their lives so much harder. How the whites simply treated their slaves like pieces of machinery. But machinery that could be whipped if it didn't produce enough, fast enough. Machinery that could be mutilated, raped, killed if the desire arose. Machinery that could be cheated cheerfully without a trace of guilt. And then the story of Cudjoe Lewis's life after emancipation, because the Civil War, which is all around us in this city, happened, and he was emancipated. His happiness with freedom, helping to create a community, a church, building his own house. His tender love for his wife, Celie, and their children. The horrible deaths that follow. We see a man so lonely for Africa, so lonely for his family. We are struck with the realization that he is naming something we ourselves work hard to avoid. How lonely we are too in this still foreign land. Lonely for our true culture, our people, our singular connection to a specific understanding of the universe. And that what we long for, as in Cudjoe Lewis's case, is gone forever. But we see something else, the nobility of a soul that has suffered to the point almost of erasure. Almost of erasure. And still it struggles to be whole, present, giving, growing in love, deepening in understanding. Cudjoe Lewis's wisdom becomes so apparent toward the end of his life that neighbors ask him to speak to them in parables, which he does. I mean, this is one of the most extraordinary things in this book, that this old man starts speaking in parables, offering peace. Here is the medicine. So the wound is the wound. The wound is that we are not innocent, that horrible things have been done in our name, that sometimes we have participated. But here's the medicine, that though the heart is breaking, happiness can exist in a moment also. And because the moment in which we live is all the time there really is, we can keep going from moment to moment. It may be true, and often is, that every person we hold dear is taken from us. Still, we can keep going. We watch our beans and our watermelons grow. We plant, we hoe, we harvest, we share with neighbors. If a young anthropologist appears with 2 hams, Zora, and gives us one, we look forward to enjoying it. Life, inexhaustible, goes on, and we do too, carrying our wounds and our medicines, our wounds and our medicines as we go. Ours is an amazing, a spectacular journey in the Americas. It is so remarkable, one can only be thankful for it, bizarre as that may sound. Perhaps our planet is for learning to appreciate the extraordinary wonder of life that surrounds even our suffering, and to say yes, if through the thickest of tears. So on my blog, I have a friend in Cuba who translates everything for me. So I send him pieces and he translates and sends them back, and so my blog is bilingual. But he couldn't figure out the watermelon part. So he said, well, what's with the watermelon? And I wrote back and told him what the watermelon part. How many of you know what the watermelon part is? I mean, you don't have to go into specifics, but just raise your hand if you think you have a clue about the watermelon part. Okay, good. A popular caricature of African Americans for centuries portrayed them mindlessly eating watermelon. You know, on cups and glasses and pillowcases and towels and baskets and whatever else you could put a black face on eating watermelon. There they were, you know, really. This so damaged the psyche of many black children that they grew up actually hating the fruit. Or if they ate it as adults and liked it, this fact was hidden. I think the tender fragility of souls under extreme racist stress played a part in the denial of the African participation in the slave trade. So, once again, this brilliant sister, this anthropologist, this woman who went her own way, who wanted to give us something nutritious, something that we could actually grow on, as opposed to swagger with. You know, I mean, many people give you stuff that will help your little, you know, but that stuff doesn't last. It's momentary, and it's an illusion that you've actually accomplished something when you haven't. It takes somebody who really loves you, and really has faith in you to just give you the real deal. You know, and this has taken, how many years? 50 years for us to see this book, because they killed it. But we weren't supposed to see this. And that is a lack of faith in us. Because this opens up such a realm of new study. For instance, if we were in Africa and we were captured by somebody in another tribe, and then and this is life, right? You know how life is. Then they'd end up getting captured, right? And then they'd be coming on the next boat. Okay? Follow? Well, some people are going to be really mad at them. So what's that going to do? I mean, where does it opens up just this whole realm of thought about so much of the sort of intertribal on this land. Anger and hostility and people not being able to get along. A lot of that stuff turns out to be tribal. A lot of it. I mean, it's so extraordinary to think about it that way. But it has to be a reality because people don't just forget. They don't. It took a lot of church, and it took a lot of Jesus and a lot of God to get a lot of those people to be able to sit in the same row. Can I get a witness? So isn't this fascinating? I mean, isn't this a whole other thing? I mean, this is like TK and Janie, it's like, oh. So there are all these different ways of relating and understanding how stuff works. And the people who love us try to make sure we have all the parts. And they trust us to be able to be intelligent enough and big-hearted enough or whatever to put them together. They have enormous faith in us. She had incredible faith in us that we could, it's tough. All right, it's tough. So what? We're tough people. We can do it. We're not instantly going to turn around and, try to, chop off somebody's head or whatever. There was a lot of that, before our people got here. I mean, you're going to be surprised. It's fascinating. So, how are you doing? Because I think I've run over my time limit.
You're doing great.
You're doing great. You want to hear some more?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now this thing wants something from you. Computers are wonderful, but I tell you, when they start wanting stuff from you and you don't know what it is. Okay. Now, here we come up to something that is very important for us to think about as a people, because you're going to be hearing a lot more about this. I'll just introduce this by quoting a press statement that just came out a couple of weeks ago. Israel's chief rabbi calls black people monkeys. Okay, so this is part of, comes out of the fact that many of us for years have critiqued, this goes all the way back to Martin Luther King Jr., have critiqued the horrible apartheid treatment of Palestinian people, right? So now they're trying to make it, and the only thing we've had to fight with really is boycotts, which is what we used in Alabama and in the South. What else can you do, really? They make it really hard for you to do anything else. It's the truth. But now they're trying to make boycotting Israeli products in an attempt to move this situation. They're trying to make that illegal. They're going to make boycotting illegal. At the same time, they are getting rid of all the African immigrants who have gone to Israel in the most horrible way. You talk about some real terrible stuff. Just look some of this up. I don't need to go into it because it's pretty grim. But in any case, when you speak on this now, you're called an anti-Semite. So I had to, of course, rise to this occasion. And I did it partly because, you know, that is just my tradition. You do not let people abuse you and say nothing. And we have ancestors who back us up, and they teach us how to do this. So if we're going to be called monkeys and we're going to be called anti-Semitic, and I want you to look this up on my website so you get a more in-depth understanding, because I had to respond in this way. One wise saying of the ancestors is worth more than 1,000 toxic ideologies. For instance, and this is, you know, you'll see, this is, we are so rich in ancestor. It's just, Anyway, for instance, I've been called everything but a child of God. You know that quote? Okay, I've been called everything but a child of God. Well, and here's somebody calling you a monkey, an anti-Semite, and all these other things. For instance, I've been called everything but a child of God. Well, there you stand, mud-splattered, unable, because of intrigues and laws, to defend yourself against their attacks. Hundreds of years of this. And so you concede the obvious. Their lineage of oppression is equal to your centuries of enduring their abuse. Part of that abuse is in the Bible. Now, you know that's true, don't you? I tell you, unless you critique all the books that you read, you're going to be in a world of trouble. So anyhow, what are they declaring now? That you are a monkey, a donkey, a chimp, a baboon, a communist, a conspiracy theorist, an anti-Semite, a know-nothing, a moron, a disgrace, a shrew? But it is all so seen before. But the ancestors denied the right to protest on pain of lynching and or beheading. There was a lot of beheading in America. I hope you know that too. Throughout one true line that can be stated in any circumstance of character assassination by all the rest of us, standing as we do and as they did too, usually defenseless, before the arrogant and morally infinitesimal. I've been buked and I've been scorned, I've been talked about, show as you're born, is also a solace. Who can deny the support of those words as sung by the choral angels of Morehouse, Howard, Spelman, and Tuskegee? But the line, I've been called everything but a child of God, so simple and direct, we still see the faces and feel the quiet eyes of the many thousands gone. That line covers most slander. So that is part of what we should have in our medicine bundle as well, and I certainly have it. I have been called everything but a child of God. And I am still here. So I wanted, I'm just going to touch on a few things that I wanted to share with you, but one of these years we will have longer time. I want to suggest that you get a book called Madam President. Because here again, now, the part of what has hobbled us is our inability or our real resistance to dealing with reality, as opposed to fancy, because the fancy makes you feel good, okay? It's like loving Black Panther but not saying a word about the violence. Don't do that. We can hold both of them. We can love the beautiful sisters, the brothers, the story, the waterfall, the everything. And we can still say in our children's hearing, gosh, that's really too violent. You know, I wouldn't really want you to be doing that and think that that's cool. You know, stand up for what you really believe. You know? And by the way, this is the butterfly. It's not what they're doing. I mean, I love what they're doing, but don't get confused. I mean, my butterfly is all about how we may be one butterfly, but the flutter of the wings of one butterfly changes the climate around the planet. And that's what we do. So anyway, very quickly, Madam President, I want you to, when you have a chance, take a look at this book, again by an African-American woman. I tell you, the women of the world now, I mean, especially women of color. I just read an incredible book by an Ethiopian woman. Oh. But the women of the world have said enough of this really crummy, quote, history that these men are writing. It doesn't make sense. It leaves out everything important. Nobody knows how to cook. So we will write books, you know, that show history from the way it looks as we have lived it, and as our grandmothers and our mothers have lived it. So in this book about the first African woman president of a country, Liberia, I think some of the people from here went there. And not to get off on a tangent, when they went there, you know how they acted? The freed slaves who went back to Liberia? They acted like the white people here. Boo. I mean, anyway. So what we learn about Liberia, what we learn about Africa in this writing now by people like this woman, and by this woman herself specifically, is how entrenched is tribalism still. That the reason, you know, the reason Liberia went up in flames was because they had not resolved their tribalism, and that when the white former slaves, I mean, they looked white, came back. I mean, some of them were coming for the first time, kind of. They represented a different tribe that actually colonized the people who were there. I mean, they really made their lives very hard. So that was a really challenging situation. But again, if we can look at this realistically and look at it with, you know, everything we have, I mean, not just look at it and to see whether, you know, they just went back and everything was fine and, you know, just get us back to Africa and everything is great. We can learn so much. So I think I'm going to close with a couple of poems. How are you doing? Good, okay. The thing is that as you go along, and I'm sure all of us see this, you know, it's just the teaching, some of the teachings and some of the trainings are not really good for us. And we have to really feel it. And when you read something and it doesn't sound quite right, investigate it. Don't just take it. You know, it's like swallowing a bad poem. You know, Akhmatova, the Russian poet, said, if you swallow one bad poem, you'll have indigestion the rest of your life. And it's true. If you swallow a lie, if you swallow an evasion, if you let people convince you that something that you know is wrong is okay, it's corrosive. It hurts you. So, spring poem. The seed from last year's garden has been scattered by the wind. When I return in spring, tiny green faces are everywhere. Some have landed, as we might too, in dry and rocky ground, But Mother has returned, and she is the gardener. She notices. Mother notices. The stunted plants, trying their best, still are stuck in rocky soil, or maybe more discouraging from a young plant's point of view, in treacherous sand. Sand looks so solid, but it's not. And winter packs it hard, like earth, and it is earth, but a very fickle kind. It slips, it slides, water drains right through it. But the gardener, who knows, the mother to the plants has come home. She sees. With her old and dullest trowel, she sets about her work. For days, she has carefully noted all the uncomfortables. Now she moves. The stunted zinnias, she can almost hear gasping for breath. She moves into big pots. No matter that legend is, they dislike being moved. The impatiens, fainting in the heat, she transplants to dappled shade. The huge jasmine that never blooms, she leaves alone except to shower it with a hose and tell it that though perhaps it has forgot, she has not. Its function is to create heavenly scented flowers that look like stars. No more letting seeds struggle where they fall, as if there is justice in neglect. This is an Old or New Testament teaching we might decline. Placing our belief in the gardener, the mother of the plants, who always returns after the winter thaw, sees the condition of each one of her green children, and acts to bring nurturance, happiness, and radiance to them all. So, anybody would like to hear one more poem, or is this enough? One more, okay. Poetry is really good for you. I'm telling you, it is just, it's the best medicine. And you know, there's something about growing up in the South, too, that makes us very much, I know, I'm going to close with this one. My daughter and grandson came to visit, and I was feeling that feeling you get, when your family is about to leave, and it's very lonely, really. And I was sitting there, and I was looking at one remaining mango tree, kind of. And this is a story about what I was learning from looking at this mango as they were leaving. But this is also dedicated to you. Encouraged by the miracles of life, for instance, the wisdom of the mango tree. 2 years ago, a hurricane named Patricia, the worst storm ever to hit Earth, according to those keeping record of relatively recent times, destroyed 2 mango trees I planted 30 years ago. With sorrow, we pulled up one stump, but while preparing to pull up stump number 2, we noticed at the very top of it, clinging for dear life, a tiny twig of a branch had started to grow. Its solitary tenacity moved me. I grieved the huge tree the mango used to be, with luscious mangoes hanging down, and hanging as well, a bright green swing I had placed on a stout branch for my grandchild. Last year, I noticed the tiny branch left out of pity on the otherwise dead-seeming stump had begun to grow. This year, I see it has grown incredibly and has shaped itself into a tree. From a distance, you cannot even tell this tree is growing out of a stump. Here is the miracle. Here is the miracle. How did it know to do this? That though only a sprig of a branch, and a spindly one at that. How did it know? How did it know it was supposed to be a tree? Next year, it may well produce mangoes. From this experience, my faith in us returns. In just this way, the way of the tiny mango twig that knew it was supposed to be a tree, we will also know, however betrayed, broken, deformed, or distorted we may become, whole parts of us sheared off in a multitude of human storms, that we are meant to be upstanding, fully rounded, goodness-producing human beings. We will grow ourselves back to our original form if even one leaf is left to us, and we will drop our fruit. We will drop our fruit, as you saw today, to nourish the world.
Was that not a treat? We thank you so much, Alice Walker, for coming and sharing your wisdom and the beauty of your words with us this evening. As we move forward in the program, we're going to call up to the stage Aida Blackmon Shabazz, Reverend Carla Jean-McNeil Jackson, and Minister Veda Suggs Essilfe, who will be presenting their gifts of song. But before you come up, I just want to make one announcement. For the people in the back, before you go, it's very, very important that we handle one bit of housekeeping. I neglected to say prior to Alice Walker coming up to the stage that we want to protect her intellectual property. And in this world and age of digital media, videoing and pictures will go up on social media, and then we have no control over how her words are disseminated by the public. So what we ask is that you please refrain from posting any video media from this evening. If you have, we ask that you would kindly, in the spirit of love and out of respect for Alice Walker's gifts, pull them down. You are very welcome to share photos from the evening, but to protect her intellectual property, we ask that you please respect our wishes. Thank you so much.
All right. Greetings, family. Greetings, greetings. So we stand here just after the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. And we stand here honoring him and all the other freedom fighters, the brave men and women who gave and lived their lives for us. The Dr. Alice Walkers, the Fannie Lou Hamers, the Ella Bakers, the Coretta Scott Kings, the Betty Shabazzes, the Malcolm X's, the Medgar and Murley Evers. And even if they have not transitioned, they've lived their lives for us. And so we thank them not only for their fight, but for showing us how to love, to still have joy in the struggle. These freedom songs that we are going to sing are our magic, our prayers, our conjuring of the power that opens the way, that quells fears, and brings our strength. So as we sing, we don't want to sing to you. We want you to sing with us. So you are welcome to stand up, to clap your hands, and to call down the power of our ancestors so we can continue this fight. Somebody prayed for me. They had me on their mind. They took the time to pray for me. I'm so glad they prayed. Yes, I'm glad. for me, prayed for me. She had me on her mind. She took the time to pray for me. I'm so glad she prayed. Yes, I am. Yes, I'm glad she prayed. I'm so glad she prayed for me. My father prayed for me, prayed for me, had me on his mind, took the time to pray for me. I'm so glad he prayed. Yes, I'm glad he prayed. I'm so glad he prayed for me. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more moaning, no more moaning, no more moaning, no more moaning, no more moaning over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. I'm on my way, to freedom land. I'm on my way, to freedom land. I'm on my way, to freedom land. I'm on my way, praise God, I'm on my way. I asked my sister, come and go with me. Come go with me. I asked my sister, come and go with me. Come go with me. I asked my sister, come and go with me. Come go with me. I'm on my way, praise God, I'm on my way. I'm on my way, to freedom land. I'm on my way, to freedom land. I'm on my way, to freedom land. I'm on my way, praise God, I'm on my way. Glory, glory. All right now. Hallelujah. Since I laid my burdens down, glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burdens down, I feel better, so much better. Since I laid my burdens down, I feel better, so much better. Since I laid my burdens down, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the waters. We shall not be moved.
Fighting for freedom, we shall not be moved. Fighting for freedom, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree planted by the waters, we shall not